The poison is spreading. The tolerance of corruption, the proneness to violence, the love of fairy tale promises by their government officials, and just the different set of moral principles. Friends, what's happening in France right now, if you've been seeing any of the videos of them setting schools on fire, where they've been setting public buildings on fire, where they've been attacking police with firearms and fireworks as well, it is chaos over there, and it is a race war. That's ultimately what it is. The 15% of Paris that is Muslim immigrants from other countries, they are rioting out on the streets. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And most of the people out there on the streets are from African countries. This is just the fact. They brought in all of these immigrants who have different values in them. What did they think was going to happen? This is the same thing that happened in the Scandinavian countries where they had no-go zones. They still do. Where the people coming in from other countries decided that they wanted to keep playing like they were in Africa or in Asia, and that they were just going to keep their culture and they weren't going to assimilate whatsoever. In fact, anyone who entered their neighborhood was going to have to assimilate to them, including the police. What did they think was going to happen? And what's happening in France today is what's going to happen in Texas tomorrow. What's going to happen in any of the places where we see a rapid influx of people with different values who are not assimilating. And Texas is getting a lot of people from California. A lot of people from blue states are coming into red states with all their bad policies, all the things that destroyed their home states. They're bringing with them to these red states. And the same thing, people coming in from Central and South America. They're coming from failed states, and they are bringing all their bad policies along with them, and they're not assimilating. And they're forming their own communities, and they are voting, and they are changing the fabric of the society, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if they came from a place where they have good values and everything like that. But even sometimes it's just a different set of values. And it can just create dissension and disunity and different priorities. And we're seeing that play out all across the United States. We have all these people who seem to us normal folks to have lost their minds. They cannot deal with reality. They're escaping the hellholes of California and Chicago and places where they're getting murdered on the streets. And then they want to come to places that haven't been destroyed, and they want to start implementing the same policies. You know, why would France be so surprised that bringing in all these people from Syria and Egypt and Sudan and Libya, when these people go out on the streets with their firearms and their fireworks and their anger and start treating France like it's Syria or like it's Libya? They're having a protest Egypt style. Well, what did you think was going to happen when he brought in tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Egyptians? Like, what did you think was going to happen when most of them happen to be military-age males? I mean, we're not allowed to talk about that. We're supposed to talk about how their families and stuff like that. But that's not the demographics. Demographically speaking, it's mostly young males. You know, there's women, there's children in there. A lot of the children are abducted and used as human shields, especially in the United States. Sold into sex trafficking and that kind of thing. We're not supposed to talk about that, but where do you think modern day slavery is taking place, folks? It's taking place in the same places where illegal immigration is happening. That's where it's happening. They're bringing in illegal people who are slaves and are afraid of being found out, and they use that to keep them enslaved, and they bring them into prosperous countries where there's money. That's what's happening, folks. We can shield our eyes from it. We can pretend like it's not happening, but it is happening. And what did we expect to happen? We cannot be one house if we are divided. Abraham Lincoln talked a good bit about that, right? A house divided against itself cannot stand. And he was quoting, of course, from the Bible when he was talking about that. And he was talking about the American Civil War, of course, but the same is true today. If we're divided against each other, how can we be one? Democracy doesn't solve issues. What it does is it gives you a framework to work through issues, but we're not seeing people work through issues, are we? In France, they're not working through issues. There's not dialogue happening. They're attacking police. They're burning public buildings down. That's not exactly constructive conversation. Sort of like BLM before. They're just going around and having mostly peaceful protests. You know, none of them were ever prosecuted for any of that, but, you know, if you actually have a peaceful protest in the wrong place, then suddenly everybody goes to jail with no probation, no chance of them getting out on parole, none of that, because they did the peaceful protest in the wrong place. So sometimes it just seems like the people that want to bring the failed policies to the next place, you have to wonder what they're thinking. They left a place and you ask them how was that place and they say how terrible it was. They left Venezuela. It was horrible in Venezuela. We left Cuba. It was horrible. And then, you know, some of these people want to implement those same policies. Now, one of the things that we've seen that kind of infuriates some people of our leftist friends is that Florida, with the Cuban population, they've by and large remembered how Cuba has been, and they don't want to go back to Cuba. They don't want to make Florida into a new Cuba. And that's something that's kind of a distinctive there, is that those people there are very aware of why, of communism, and they're like, we don't want that. We don't want any of that. We will definitely not want them. Some of the most outspoken people against leftists are Cubans, right? Because they and their families know firsthand what that looks like, and they don't want any of it. But when you bring in people to your country, like France is, and like the United States is by and large, we're bringing in a lot of people who aren't planning on assimilating. If we don't have a plan to assimilate them, what do you think is going to happen? All these people walking into Europe, who is helping them get to Europe? This is a question that nobody's asking. A lot of those NGOs are funded in part by Russia. Yes, Russians are helping fund the ferries that are carrying Africans across the ocean, the Mediterranean Sea, over to the southern coast and dumping them in Greece, dumping them in Italy. Why would Russia be doing this? They're helping the Europeans so very much, aren't they? Or do the Russians see properly that this is meant to destroy Europe? Hey, how many people were killed when Prigozhin and the Wagner group went off the rails and tried to do their coup? How many people have now died in France due to the coup that's happening there? And I'm just going to leave that right there. I'm going to leave that right there because it sure seemed like the whole Wagner thing got settled pretty fast. There was only a certain number of limited people involved in that thing. But when we look over what's happening in France, seems like France is a lot less stable than Russia is right now. Did I just say that? Did I just say that out loud? Because it sure seems that way, doesn't it? Russia might actually be a little more stable than the United States is right now. Think about that, my friends. Think about that. What is going on in your country? Make sure you know. Make sure you know what's going on in your community. Do what you can to help people assimilate. Make friends with people who are of different backgrounds. See if you can help them adopt and become a part of what America is here. Or if you're in another country, help them to become part of what your country is all about. All right, folks, if you found this video useful or helpful, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. It does help get out to more people. We also want to thank our sponsor for this video, Genesis Gold Group. They do a fantastic job moving people out of stocks and bonds in their retirement accounts over to silver, gold, and platinum. You can find out more about them if you just click on this link right here. Or if you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.